How's it going, guys? I am Folkerman, your local brick build historian, with another episode of Brick Built History. Today we're taking at the very loved, for some reason, Jagdpanzer 38, also known as the Hetzer, which we'll get to that name eventually. But this is a very lovable tank. It's quite small, but it packed a huge punch, and this is probably known best as other than the name controversy, as one of the better tank destroyers that Germany would produce from a Czech tank. But besides that, let's take a look at the box, take a look at the kit, and then we'll get into the interesting history of the Hetzer. So, starting off, let's take a look at the box. Jagdpanzer 38, or 38, Hetzer, and I like how they put the quotations in it because of the name controversy. Light tank destroyer, because it's significantly lighter than the other tank destroyers that Germany had. Original design by Andrew Sommers, who kind of miss having him there because, he was able to make this, so this one was probably a daunting task. Other than that, kit 2242, and you have the Balkenkreuz, skill 3 out of 5, 361 Lego Brickmania and brick arm elements, and yeah, it's one of the old boxes. Have the same stuff right there. You have a nice colored picture here with a cool little action shot in a mock. Full color printed build instructions, track links, stickers, camo, opening roof hatch, and MG34. So this was kit 57. I bought this off somebody, can't remember who, but I remember it was someone on Instagram sold me this, which very nice of them. So with that said, let's move the box out of the way and take a look at the kit itself. Like I said, very small kit. It's like almost like basically the size of my hand all the way around. Yeah, it's a very small tank, very cute little kit. This could basically fit anywhere, more or less. So whenever I built it, it was pretty easy for me to find a home for it. Didn't notice until just before recording this that it was missing two 2x2 flat tiles, which I can probably find eventually. But the first thing I want to mention is the angling of this kit. Like, just look how crazy this angling is. Like, he was able to get this glacis plate to basically be perfectly right on. The pig nose cover is it's the best you could do with Lego, and be able to have a elevating and depressing gun, which this has. You have this nice ambush camo. The wheels have stickers on them. You have the track that sometimes likes to move. I think it's just gets caught every once in a while, but oh well. So stickers on both sides for the road wheels. You have the sticker in the back here for the engine compartment, and also where they like hand crank started it if they needed to. You have a nice brick built exhaust in the back here, and you have an opening hatch for any commander you want in there, which I need to get another German commander to stick in here. I also like how, like, it's not quite perfect, but like this seam is very, very smooth. You have a Balkenkreuz here, Balkenkreuz there. You have a MG34 with the protection plates here. All in all, just a small, cute little tank. All the angles are just perfectly in place, which bravo, Andrew. You did a great job. You do the Czechs and the Germans proud. And it's very sturdy. Like, it's a sturdy little tank. So probably one of my new favorite tanks I have in my collection because, one, it's a Hetzer, which people love the Hetzer, and two, it's just so wonderfully built that I just can't complain about it. And look at the cute little guy. But from there, let's go on into the history. So the Jagdpanzer 38 was originally started development in 1943, but it wouldn't go into service until 1944, meaning that it was only in service for a year until Nazi Germany capitulated. It would be used after the war by like the Swiss, the Czechs, the Hungarians, and a couple other countries. But in 1943, basically, Hitler wanted a replacement for some of the other anti-tank or tank destroyers that were in German service, more notably the Sturmgeschütz and the Marder III, because they were starting to show their age and they were starting to be less and less effective, especially the Marder III, which I have, and I'll do a video on that sometime. But basically, the Marder III has an open fighting compartment, and it looks weird. It looks like an elephant, but micro scale. And by the way, this also used the same chassis as the Hetzer with the Panzer 38T, which I'll also get into. But basically, this thing would eventually evolve to this thing early in the war, and then evolve to this thing later in the war. But move those out of the way for now, and go back to this. So they needed a new light tank destroyer that was better than the Sturmgeschütz, better than the Marder, and could easily be put into production. So basically, they had a bunch of outdated Panzer 38T chassis. Well, what else would you do with them other than convert them into tank destroyers? Now, they would widen the overall chassis, and they would also lengthen it. They would enlarge the road wheels and change the roller wheels or return wheels on the top. But other than that, it is basically Panzer 38T. They would also upgrade the engine, and they would also upgrade the suspension. Basically, this thing weighed like 5 or 6 tons more than the Panzer, so the leaf spring suspension needed more stronger leaf springs, especially in the front, because when it first was produced, it would like lean forward, so they put even stronger leaf springs in the front to bring it back up into a level design. It was likely rooted from a Romanian tank destroyer of all things. Basically, in 1943, the Romanians had the Marsal tank destroyer, which does look pretty similar to the Hetzer. The biggest difference is that the gun was centrally mounted and the armor kind of like sloped down even more, like past the tracks, but it does look pretty similar to the Hetzer. Basically, this thing would be put into production based off the Panzer 38T, and it really didn't have too many problems. Unlike the Jagdpanzer and the Jagdtiger, this thing didn't really need too much development time because it was a proven, well-known, good chassis You just slap a casemate on it, give it a bigger gun, and voila, you get a wonderful little tank destroyer that doesn't really have too many problems. They would upgrade it throughout its lifespan. Things like changing the forward leaf springs even more. They would change the engine, I think. They would get rid of like an optic lens for the gunner because it protruded out and prevented rounds from deflecting off the glacis plate. Little things like that. Speaking of the gun, the Hetzer would be provided with a 75mm Pak 39 L48 high velocity cannon gun. One of the interesting things is that it is mounted off to the side. This would kind of affect the traverse. Whenever it traversed off to the side, it had a limited space going to the, well, this way, to the right, our right, because whenever it would traverse, the gun sight would have to traverse with it, and there's not a lot of space to traverse to the right. So it could traverse to the left pretty good, but traversing to the right, the gun sight would basically prevent it. Although whenever traversing to the left, you have your driver in there, you have your loader in there, you have your commander in there. It kind of became a little bit of a pain, but other than that, it was a really good gun. 75mm, high velocity. It could pretty much puncture through anything that you need, except for maybe in IS-3 or IS-2. Might take a couple rounds, but especially in like against the Allies, other than a Churchill, this thing could puncture right through it, which is pretty good for a tank destroyer its size. This thing would succeed the Marder 3, as I showed earlier, and would also kind of succeed the Stug. Not more of the Marder 3. Basically, the Hetzer is just a very loved design. And now I can talk about the name Hetzer, where it came from and what's the whole controversy behind it. So some historians refuse to call it Hetzer. They'll always call it Jagdpanzer 38 or Jagdpanzer 38 or Panzerjäger 38, whatever. They refuse to call it the Hetzer because of the whole thing that the German army didn't call this the Hetzer during the war. Now there's some disputed debates about that. There was a written down conversation between Heinz Guderian and Hitler where the troops would call it Hetzer, but it was basically an unofficial name. It was never officially called the Hetzer, and it was only either troops in the field who just gave it that nickname, or it was a post-war thing and people just started calling it Hetzer from there. Personally, I don't mind it. It's a whole lot easier than calling it Jagdpanzer 38. But either way, it's got that naming controversy. Some people want to stick by the whole authenticity of not calling it Hetzer because it never was called Hetzer. And some people like me just go, well, it's a nickname given to it post-war, but it's a whole lot easier to say. For those of you wondering, Hetzer doesn't really have a translation, but it's roughly translated to baiter, chaser, or agitator. It's really the closest you can get. Basically, that's kind of it. There's not a whole lot of places you would see Hetzers. I know the Tank Museum in Bovington, I believe they have one. And there's a few of them like surviving today because of all those countries post-war that would keep their Hetzers. They would modify it and upgrade it, so it's not like 100% pure bona fide Hetzer from World War II, but you know, a Hetzer is a Hetzer. Also, if you ever watched Girls and Panzer, you'd see that one of the teams would change their Panzer 38T to a Hetzer. It kind of pains me because basically they just dropped the casemate on without widening the tracks, widening and lengthening the chassis, and all that other good stuff. But besides that, it's actually a very good anime and movie. But getting off track, no pun intended. The Hetzer is just a loved little tank that people just either hate to love or love to hate. A lot of people say it's overrated. A lot of people say the Panzer 38T is overrated, but that's another story for another time. But a lot of people will say it's underrated as well. It's you can't get a definitive answer about what anyone thinks, or a definitive 100% agreed upon answer of what people think of the Hetzer. It's just one of those tanks, for some reason, is just so polarizing for one side or the other that people just want to cause arguments. But with all that said, if you learned something, let me know. If you have any other questions about the Hetzer, ask them in the comments. If you want to see other tanks like the Marder 3, the Panzer 38T, and I have basically almost every German tank besides like the King Tiger, the Porsche, Ferdinands, Elephants, stuff like that. So if you want to see German tanks, tell me you want to see German tanks. If you want to see British tanks, American tanks, whatever, I probably have it. But with that said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like it if you liked, and let's continue to build history.